Greetings, it is I, ShepherdShang, and I said I would do this, I think. I might not have, I wasn't sure. But this is a sort of a review of the Dragon Quest VIII for the 3DS, kind of the way I did with Dragon Quest VII for the 3DS. Unfortunately, this is not going to be as glowing a review as Dragon Quest VII was, sadly. Because here's the short version. This game was disappointing. If you've played the PS2 version, or if you still have the PS2 version, don't bother buying this game. It's not worth it. Long explanation! There you go, click off the video if you prefer the short version. Alright, so let's do a little bit of background with this game and my experience with it. So, Dragon Quest VIII came out on the PlayStation 2 in 2004 in Japan, I think it was, and 2005 here in America. I, of course, got it here in America because, you know, why would I have the Japanese version? But anyway, and there was a lot of hype around it, which was completely understandable. It was the first Dragon Quest game since 2001. It was, first Dragon Quest game since the Squaresoft Enix merger. And it was the first Dragon Quest game to be in 3D. Well, the first mainline Dragon Quest game. There was actually, I believe the Torneko dungeon games were in 3D. Never played them. They were for the PlayStation. But anyway, so yeah, there was a lot of hype around it, and I'd say it was a good game. Yeah, it was a pretty decent RPG. But I will say that back then, my opinion was it was not as good a game as Dragon Warrior 7 was. And playing through this re-release, I still hold that opinion. Yeah, there was a lot of stuff I forgot about this game when I was playing the 3DS version. Wow. Okay, but before I get into that, let's again talk about the original version. So, the big thing with it was it was 3D rather than a 2D world. You could see your characters, you could see them fighting, you could see them fighting enemies, they were animated, you could see them wielding weapons, and you could see them holding shields, you could see them casting spells, which again was something Dragon Quest had never done. And that was a big part of terminology. The draw for the game, let's call it. It had problems that in a RPG it really shouldn't have had. Basically, it had pretty much a lot of the same problems that the Dragon Quest series had as far as bad points that were then from a 2D world that were carried over to a 3D world and didn't work. Primary thing was getting around with random encounters. So the thing with 2D worlds is that they were small. You could wander around and stuff and you'd get random encounters, but it would still probably take you no more than 15 minutes to go from a start point to an end point in the overworld. Even with random encounters, unless you suck. In the Dragon Quest VIII, unfortunately, it was usually closer to half an hour to an hour between areas because the world was much larger and there were still random encounters. So yeah, it had problems. I can't quite remember, but I think it did give you I don't quite remember if it was implemented. I don't think it was. Sort of a quick save where you could do, rather than at the actual save points, you could do a quick save and just turn it off and you could immediately restart, but it wouldn't be a hard save. Soft saves, that's what I think they're more commonly called. But anyway, so a little bit about the story. This game is more than 10 years old. Look up the story. I don't care about the spoilers. basically, your hero character was a guard at a castle. Evil sorcerers put a curse on the castle and all its people. The king has been turned into a little troll creature. His daughter has been turned into a horse. Your goal is to find the bad guy, beat him up, and break the curse. Various stuff happens along the way. During various plot points, it's revealed that the princess and your character had a mutual crush, let's call it. I won't. You get a couple of other characters along the way. Lots of stuff happens. And the game was unusual for Dragon Quest in that there were two endings. Normal ending you got by just completing the game. The second ending, or the true ending, as some people like to call it, was you get by completing the post-game dungeons. Well, dungeon. Post-game dungeon. And the ending was a little bit different because, unfortunately, as with so many of the Dragon Quest games, your character is a Mary Sue. Again, one of the things Dragon Warrior 7 did better. But anyway, so that was sort of the original version. So, finally, let's focus a bit more on 3DS version. So, when I heard the 3DS version was getting made, I was excited, because, again, I like Dragon Quest VIII, even if it wasn't as good as Warrior 7. But I didn't really have a lot of money at the time it was released here in America, so I didn't get a copy. And various places on the internet, one of the people I pay attention to did get a copy, and their opinion was, don't bother. If you had the PS2 version, this version isn't worth it. And I was thinking to myself, oh, really? That's not a good sign. Some of the other things I had heard about it before the release was that you actually get 2 new playable characters. And that was really exciting to me. Until I actually thought about how it would work. In the original version you had 4 characters, and they appear pretty early into the game through plot points. They are central characters, they are important to the plot. How would they work in adding 2 new characters unless they were exclusive to the post-game? Thankfully they weren't. But that was kind of what I was thinking, because that sort of thing happens a lot. Fuck you, Dragon Quest IX. Gonna try to make that the only thing I say about Dragon Quest IX. But anyway, so that by itself kind of turned me off to getting it. And when, of course, I heard people I like saying, yeah, don't bother, I decided to not bother. A little bit more recently, I was on an image board looking for some funny artwork. I do that sometimes. Came across something, a funny thing for Dragon Quest VIII, and someone was making the comic. Someone made a comment about how, I'm really glad you get to marry Jessica in the 3DS version. And all I could think to myself was, what? Yeah, that was very surprising to hear. That was not something I had ever heard about it. And I was thinking to myself, how in the hell would they make that work? A central plot point, well, central, it's a little bit more of a subplot, is that your main character is in love with the princess, and there are plot points about it. Spoilers, you get to marry the princess. Yeah. So, how in the hell would they manage that? So I started looking some stuff up, a little bit more about it, and I did find, in fact, that the characters you get aren't exclusive to the post-game. Yay! So that and the fact that there were apparently 2 new endings, I'm thinking, okay, I'm curious, how is that going to work out? So I got the game. And I got that game, I think it was the same day I posted that little video I made, I think. Yeah. So, that was my reasoning behind all of this. So let's actually start talking about the game itself. Let's save the plot stuff for later. Let's start with the technical stuff. I mentioned in that little video how the graphics did not look very good. Yeah, that didn't change. Yeah, this game was not a remake the way Dragon Quest VII for the 3DS was. This game was a re-release. The only graphics that were different are occasionally the characters have more detail. Occasionally. But most of the time the characters don't. And it really shows. Yeah, I wish I could have gotten screenshots of this stuff, because man was it bad. Yeah, it looked really bad in the cutscenes. It was super obvious. Oh. Yeah. But let's try to focus on the good stuff before I get to the bad. So I mentioned the whole random encounters in the 3D world thing were bad. They got rid of that. Thank Christ. Yeah, they added the as the battle system, instead of the random encounters, they got it where the monsters are walking around and you encounter them by them either chasing you or you running into them and that stuff. And it works great. Yeah. It works out so much better for the 3D world. So much less time consuming. So much easier to control level grinding. Oh my god. Yeah. A little thing I hadn't mentioned that I just realized. So I mentioned I had done like a dozen playthroughs of Dragon Warrior 7. Before I got this, I had done 2 playthroughs of Dragon Quest 8. Yeah, Dragon Quest 8 does not have replayability. And unfortunately, that does have something to do with the mechanics. I'll talk about that. I'll get to that part in a second. Good stuff. Let's talk about the good stuff. Let's see, what else? So a couple of things that they added. There were a couple of new things. A little bit of the draw for this version was that you can... I mentioned that you characters, you could see them using weapons and shields. You could not see them wearing armor. Yeah, that was something they did not do well in the original version, and it's something that they didn't do super well in this version either, but at least they added something. Yeah, each of your characters has at least one new outfit they can wear. Again, I'll get to that eventually. Yeah, the 2 new characters, yeah. One of them just decides to join you at a point in the story that previously had already existed. It was a pre-existing character, it wasn't like a completely new character. That was Red. She joins you after you beat Pirate's Cove. In the original version, she just buggers off, and you sort of see her again if you go looking for her. Again, it's fine. The other character, Mori, again, a pre-existing character. He was a little bit cooler to get, honestly. You get him by beating the rank S in the monster arena. Which, again, that's a good place to have him join, honestly. You can get him pretty much at any time after you unlock the arena, technically. So yeah, that was good. They added a neat little thing for the 3DS. It was basically a way to get extra items, and as a way to sort of pay more attention to the world. Basically, you get in one of the areas, a new character comes up to you, gives you a quest to take photos. It's neat. There are little things hidden throughout the world that you basically take a photo of, show it to him. He gives you stamps. The more things you collect, he'll reward you with items. Good way to get some nice stuff. Let's see. Oh, when you level up, your characters get a complete heal. The HP is completely restored, MP is completely restored, and I think it restores status effects too. Though I don't think I ever actually had that happen when I was leveling up, so I'm not sure. But yeah, that was really nice. Like, level grinding so much better. Um, let's see what else. What else was good? What else was good? They added 2 new dungeons. That was an interesting thing I saw. One of them is a post-game dungeon. I've gotten to that. I haven't beaten it yet because it's bullshit. Yeah, I'll say that. The other one, it was decent. The story around it was pretty stupid, but yeah, it was a decent dungeon, decent boss. Um, would have appreciated that the extra dungeon before the point where you get access to it, but you know, stuff, bad points. Um, so can I think any other good things to say about the technical aspects of the game? Ooh, tough question. There are a couple extra small things that show up, I guess. They added the blue chest things about refill. Those were kind of good. Easier way to get the common items. They changed the way the alchemy pot worked, thank Christ. Instead of requiring you to take a bunch of time before you can use it again, it's just an instant thing, which... There was a thing about that in the original version. Look it up, I won't go into it. Rambling on long enough. Alright, some of the bad stuff. I already mentioned how the graphics were bad, yeah. They touched up graphics in one very specific aspect and did not in any other way. So, one of the other bad things about the graphics was draw distance. Yeah, it was not good. Trees appearing in the background, yeah, sure. Buildings and cities appearing in the background. Definitely not as good, but at least it's understandable. Trees and buildings appearing as you get closer to them in cutscenes is absolute shit. Yeah, that was so bad. There was this one part in the ending was just, oh my god. You're just looking at this hill. It's got a base. Oh hey, the trees are suddenly appearing. Oh, there's a city there now. It was just like, what the fuck? And that happened a bunch of times. It was bad. It was disappointing. Which, honestly, is a good way to describe this game. Disappointing is a good word to describe this game. Yeah. So, let's see. What other bad things can I say about the technical side of things? Well, let's talk about replayability here. Why do I consider this game to not have very much in the way of replayability? Well, aside from the fact that, you do sort of get a little bit more replayability with this, simply because you can, you have more characters, and thus a couple more ways to play the game. In the original version, and with the original characters, you sort of don't. And that has a lot to do with the way your characters gain skills and spells and stuff. You basically, let's call it skill trees. Each character has skill trees that are distinctly better than the others, to the point where it is literally not even worth considering doing some of them. And that's really bad, because you basically have no variation in how you can use the characters, simply because they are literally just that much different. Just, oh my god. Yeah, like one of the characters, the hero. Let's do the hero. Each of your characters get 3 weapon skill trees, let's call it, an unarmed skill tree, and then their own special sort of, like, call it spell skill tree. And that's unique to them. For the hero, the swords are distinctly better than everything else, aside from the spell one, which is better than practically everything else in the game. It's kind of ridiculous. There's literally no point to doing the other 2 skill trees unless you've completed those other 2. And there's no point at all in doing the unarmed ones, which is true of literally all 4 of the original characters and the 2 new characters. The only one you would even consider doing it on was the character Jessica, because when you complete it, you get a stupidly strong spell for some reason. It's literally the only incentive to ever do it on any of the characters. And that is not a good way to do character customization, because there's literally no point in customizing them. And of course you can't undo any of those things you've learned, so yeah. If you decide, oh, I want to give this I want to have the hero use boomerangs, you're fucked. Yeah. There was a point against it. And that's still true for the 4 original characters. Red and Mori have it a bit better. Speaking of those 2 characters, yeah, I remember how I just said character customization? Mori is literally just a better version of the character Yangus. Once you get Mori, there is literally no reason to keep playing Yangus. That's kind of sad. And Red is a little bit better with that. She isn't just a complete copy of character Angelo. But yeah, once you get these 2 characters, you basically got no reason to use Yangus or Angelo. Again, points against it. So, I'm getting tired of talking about the bad technical stuff. Let's talk about the plot. Oh god, the plot. So, I mentioned how I was surprised with You Could Marry Jessica. How could they possibly work that into the plot? And the answer is... they didn't. Oh my god. Okay, so I gave a brief summary of what the plot was like. As part of the draw for this game, again, You Could Marry Jessica, you also get a new plot scene. You get a little bit of plot scenes with the one of the new dungeons. You don't with the other one. And this one other new scene you get, it's about one of the antagonists. You get to learn a little bit more about their past, and I liked that. It was a good addition. It would have been better if they had done more things like that. Because, quite frankly, it really needs it. Yeah, again, I had forgotten a lot of stuff about this game, and one of those things is that this game does not hold up very well. Yeah, it was a good game when it came out, and honestly, a lot of my opinion on that has to do with nostalgia, because, yeah, looking back on it, the draw was it was 3D. Other than that, it was a very standard RPG. And, wow, there's so many things that emphasize that with the plot. Yeah, towards the end, the characters just basically give up. I'm not talking about beating the bad guy or something. There's a scene where this one guy goes, "Take them away, they've committed this crime." The characters don't do anything. They easily could have handled this guy, all of his men, settled the entire thing. They don't. They don't even put up a struggle. You literally go from this one scene where you see the characters closing in to them gripping onto your arms, and you're just looking a little bit indignant. And they throw you in prison. for a month. Oh my god. It's just like... That is just bad writing. I... I won't go into too much detail about just how questionable some of the aspects of the plot were. Let's talk about the new stuff. Let's talk about the new plot. So I mentioned there were some cutscenes for the for one of the dungeons. This post-game dungeon doesn't get any story. It's just sort of there. Yeah, you unlock it and it's there. I'll talk about that in a bit. Yeah, the plot for the new dungeon is just... It's there, I guess. Yeah. It's dumb. There are things about it that are good, but there's a lot of stupid shit there. Especially that it seems to be trying to do a little bit of character redemption for one of the bad guys. And that's just... No. No. This character was a piece of shit. He is completely unrepentant in his actions. Don't try to make him look like a tsundere. It's just... And that's basically what they try to do. Yeah, it's like they're trying to do a bad... Oh, this guy wasn't really that bad, even though he did almost destroy the world for his own greed. Yeah, no. That's just dumb. And again, there was some stupid writing there. Also some bad translation work. Yeah, the characters' names are different in the English version than the Japanese version. For some reason, they just didn't translate it right. I have no idea why or how they would do that, but it happened. Yeah, it happened a couple of times actually, but whatever. Something else I didn't mention that was bad. Voice acting. Oh god, the voice acting was all over the place. Some of it was pretty good, a lot of it was... Ugh. Yeah, you know, after years of Team 4-Star and then learning a bit about voice acting, yeah, it was pretty rough. So, let's get to the part you've been waiting for. Let's talk about tits. I mean Jessica. And by Jessica, I mean her tits. I'm not exaggerating. This is... Oh, poor Jessica. She was a fairly fun character. I mean, but everything that was added to do with her is literally about fetishes. Fetishism, satisfying the fans' desire for her and her body. Here's a picture of what I mean. Yeah. So, the picture you're seeing right now is the various outfits you could dress her up in the original version. They gave her more outfits in the new version. I'm not going to put them on screen. Look them up. Yeah, they were literally fetish outfits. One of them is literally a schoolgirl outfit. Yeah. Adding the stuff about being able to marry her was all fan wank. Oh my god, some of the comments I've seen on stuff involving this. I am so glad the hero finally gets the tits he deserved. That was a common comment I saw regarding stuff like this. So, the plot involving it. It's shit. Yeah, it is utter shit. And there is no build up to it. if you go to a certain character at a certain time, you get to see a cutscene, and then if you know to then do this other thing, you get a second cutscene, and that triggers you getting the ability to marry Jessica. Why? So, in the original version, there is like maybe 2 things that suggest Jessica might like the hero as more than just a friend. There's just as much stuff that she might like the character Angelo as more than just a friend. But that's it. So what about this new version? No, there's nothing new. All your character interactions are pretty much the same. I think there might have been a change in one of the cutscenes, but again, it's been so long since I last played through the game, I don't know. And it sucks. At this point, you've probably been noticing the fact that I've posted a bunch of pictures of what Jessica looks like, including ones where I've just emphasized the fact that she has tits. Because that is her character, sadly. As far as the fans are concerned, anyway. Yeah. It's in the official artwork. It really... So remember I mentioned those skill trees? Each of the skill trees has a name. So her skill tree that involves spells and special skills and stuff is literally called Sex Appeal. Yeah. That's literally what her character is and what she has just been completely reduced to. It's really kind of sad. She was a decent character. So, I could have done this review a few days back. I could have... it's actually taken me this long to do this because I was kind of putting off beating the game simply because I have been thinking about this review the entire time I was playing the game, and the more I thought about it, the less I wanted to get the new ending. Yeah. I didn't even know there were 2 new endings. Yeah, one of them you get to marry Jessica, the other is even stupider. You basically just ignore the build-up of the original plot and say, oh, I'm going off to go adventuring with Jessica. Even though the scenes directly before that imply that that is not what she wants to do. She literally says she's going to be staying home with her estranged family. And then you just randomly get a scene where, oh, we're going off on a new adventure by ourselves. Bad writing. Bad writing. Bad writing all around, and that's what pisses me off the most about this, to be perfectly honest. If it were written well, yeah, I'd be behind it. I find Jessica attractive, even though I am asexual. I recognize that she is an attractive female, and that she was appealing. But this whole thing is just... it's badly written, and that's just... the original plot was fine. Couldn't they have tried to work it in a way that would actually make sense for the plot? Rather than, oh, I just randomly decide I want to marry Jessica, which is literally what happens. And she's just sort of okay with it. Even though there's basically no indication that she's interested in you. Speaking of sexualizing her, yeah, there's one little scene that I don't know if it was in the mention. I mentioned the scene that might not have been in the original version. Yeah, it also implies that she was sexually attracted to her older brother, and that she's now focusing it on the hero. Fetishism. Yeah, it's really big within this. Yeah, no, I didn't get the new ending where you get to marry Jessica because it is stupid. I looked it up on YouTube. I couldn't sit through it. It was that dumb. Literally, the characters in the story are admitting that it is a stupid turn of events. That the whole line of reasoning for it is just... they admit that it's dumb. It hurts me. It hurt. I'm big plot person, to be perfectly honest. I prefer plot over action. Kind of why I didn't like the third Lord of the Rings movie. Even though everyone seems to call it a masterpiece. It's not. Yeah, they just took the original plot and said, oh, you know all this build up? Screw it. Here are some tits. Yeah, this game is just so disappointing. It is sad. The original version was perfectly fine. I completely understand why it was recommended to not even bother getting this game. If you've never played the original version, never had a PlayStation 2, can't afford to buy one, which I could also understand because it's like pretty expensive these days, and you're interested in the story, go ahead and get it. If you played it before, or if you still have your old PlayStation 2 version the way I do, don't bother with this. Give it a miss. It's not worth it. Because it is a disappointment. I am ShepherdShang, and this was a very long-winded review of Dragon Quest VIII for the 3DS. Not a very good one, but it was one. Goodbye.